talk about the home office deduction. A lot of people are going to want to take this deduction in 2020, but it's one of the most misunderstood deductions. So I'm going to give you the information, the top 5 things you need to know in this video, and stay tuned until the end because I'm going to give you a free special offer. Number 1 is using a tax professional. It's important to use a tax professional so that you get the calculation right, but there's a lot of confusion on who qualifies for this deduction. And the reason that there's some confusion is that the rules have changed. How the IRS views the deduction has changed over time, and not everyone has kept up. So you may have received incorrect information indicating you do not qualify when you may actually qualify for this deduction. So if you watch this video, I'm going to explain how you can know if you qualify, and then you can use this information to make sure you and your tax professional are on the same page. Number 2 important thing to know about the home office deduction is who qualifies. If you're an employee, meaning you get a W-2 and a paycheck every week and you work for someone else, you cannot take this deduction on your own taxes. But that doesn't mean game over. You can use information that you're going to learn in this video to convince your employer to reimburse you for your home office expenses. Because guess what? Your employer can take this deduction on their taxes for the business as a business deduction if they reimburse you. And you can show that you've had increased costs working from home if your Wi-Fi costs have gone up, if you have to use your home phone, your cell phone a lot more now, if you're using more electricity at home, if you've had to dedicate space that you can't use for other things now. So you may be able to get reimbursed. If you are self-employed, so you have a sole proprietor, or you're a single member LLC owner, no problem. If you qualify, you're going to be able to take this deduction. If you have a partnership, then you're going to want to make sure this is considered in your partnership agreement. So talk to your tax professional and possibly your attorney to make sure that that's covered. And if you own a corporation, then you know that you are both the owner and the employee of your corporation. So just like the employee I mentioned a minute ago, you're going to need to be reimbursed, and then it becomes a business expense because only businesses can take this deduction now. However, because you're the owner, you're going to have no problem convincing yourself to do so. If you're an S-Corp, the one thing you want to make sure that you do is that you have an accountable plan. If you don't have an accountable plan, or you don't know what one is, talk to your tax professional. It is the document that lays out your plan for reimbursing employees, including yourself as employee. And you need to have that in place so that the employee reimbursements aren't going to be taxed. So that's who's going to qualify. Now let's talk about how you qualify. So number 3 is regular and exclusive use. This is the most important test for whether or not you're going to qualify. And regular, it sounds just like what it means. Regular means that you're using your space regularly. It doesn't have to be every day, but your desk area or the space that you're using for your office should not be gathering dust. The other is exclusive use, and this one trips people up a lot. You know, you might have heard that if you have a home office deduction that you're more likely to get audited. That's probably not very true, but if you take some kind of ridiculous home office deduction, like you're trying to say that I use 80% of my home for the home office deduction, well, that's going to look kind of weird, and the IRS is going to want to see that. That makes them want to show up at your house, which they have done. There's a couple tax court cases where when they went to the person's house, they found that of the office space they said was exclusively used for business, it included their living room with their couch and their kids' toys and their TV. It included their entire dining room, and they had no other place that it appeared the family was eating. So don't push it. Take this deduction to the extent that you're allowed, but don't try to deduct your family's regular, recreational, casual hangout and living space. So exclusive use also means that you're not having, like, that's not the place you do crafting on the weekends. It's not where your kids do their homework. It doesn't have to be like a whole separate room that you dedicate to your office. You can have an office in your bedroom. You can have an office in the corner of your guest room or in the middle of, you know, a large or open space like a basement area. But the only part that you're going to count for the deduction is the part that's exclusively used for business. So let's say it's in a guest room. When your aunt comes to visit for the weekend, you're going to tell her, okay, hey, use the closet, use the dresser, use the bed. Don't use this office space over here. This is exclusively for my business. And if it's in your bedroom, same thing. You're not going to lay your clothes all over your office chair, and you're not going to sit here to pay your personal bills at your desk. So that's exclusive use. There's a couple exceptions if you're using your home office space for storage, or if you have a daycare in your home, because they do recognize that it's pretty hard to have a large enough space for an in-home daycare, and additionally then a whole separate space for your family's living space. So they allow you to do some dividing of the time with the daycare. So follow my blog on below the video if you need more information about storage spaces and daycares. Number 4, important thing you need to know about the home office deduction is how you use the space. So there's a couple different ways that you can qualify based on how you use the space. The most common one is going to be that it's the principal place of business, meaning it's really important to your business. You spend most of your time there, or that's where you sit to earn most of your income if you have an online business, like a fully online business. A myth you might have heard is that if you have a separate rented or leased office space, that you can't also have a home office, and that is not true. You are allowed to have both if the home office meets the rules, and one of the ways it meets it is the principal place of business. So in addition to, it's the place I spend the most amount of time, it's the place I earn the most money, it might qualify if it's the only place you do admin activities. So if you have a separate leased rented space where you see customers or clients or patients, and you don't stay there when you're done seeing your customers, clients, and patients. You go home to do your bookkeeping and your billing and your advertising to get new clients. All of those things happen in your home office, then they would consider that a principal place of business for the managerial and administrative tasks of your business. And as long as you keep it exclusively to your house, that those admin activities aren't happening in your rented office, then it's going to count as a principal place of business. There's 3 ways you can qualify if it's not your principal place of business. So let's say you have an external office that's the main place that you earn money and that you spend most of your time, and maybe even where you do your admin. But at home, you meet with clients. If you have people coming to your house, and I don't mean on Zoom, it has to be in person. If you have customers, clients, or patients coming to your physical home, then it's going to qualify for this home office deduction as long as you meet those regular and exclusive use tests. So you can't have someone coming to your home once a year. It has to be regularly using it to meet with clients in person in your home. Another one is if you use your home for storage. It doesn't have to be your principal place of business, and you don't have to meet with clients if you are storing supplies in your home. The space that you use for supplies and storage can be deducted. And the last way, in addition to principal place of business, the meeting with clients in person, and storage, is if you have a freestanding space. So if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to be working at home for a long time, I think I want to get a she shed, it's going to go in the backyard, that freestanding structure is going to be the home office deduction, and it doesn't have to be the principal place of business, it doesn't have to be a place you meet with clients or a place that you store things. So a freestanding structure gets you to meet this qualification, as long as, again, it's regularly and exclusively used for business. Okay, so now we're at number 5, and stay tuned because here's where the free offer is going to come in. Number 5, once you've gone through all of that to find out if you can take this deduction, and so now you know you can, how much? First, you have to calculate the deduction before you can take it. And in here, there's 2 ways to calculate it. This is where you and your tax professional are both going to be very important, because you're going to do the measurements and track the expenses, and then your tax professional is going to do the taxi thing to figure out what the actual deduction is. There's 2 ways to calculate it. One is the simplified method, and that method is simple, and it's also usually a lower deduction. What the simplified method says is that up to 300 square feet, up to $5 a square foot, means you can take a maximum of $1,500 a year. So it's not nothing. $1,500 is a decent deduction for just using your space in your house. You might be able to get a bigger deduction, however, using the actual expenses method. And the good news is you can figure out both ways, and whichever one gives you the larger deduction, you can take. So with the actual expenses method, you need to track actual expenses. And there's different kinds of expenses related to your home office. if you buy like a computer or a desk or something that's not attached to your house in any way, shape, or form, you could move it to a different office at any time. That's just a business deduction, as long as you use it for business. We're talking about things that are like attached and affixed to your house. So putting in a ceiling fan, changing the flooring, removing wallpaper and repainting. If you're a YouTuber, creating your background that's affixed to your wall. Those things are all direct expenses. And direct expenses are going to be 100% deductible under the home office deduction rules. But then there's also expenses related to your whole house. You can't exactly have a home office if there's a big hole in your window and wind is blowing through, if your plumbing's leaking or your roof is needing to be repaired and is gonna leak. So you have to maintain your home. And this is where these indirect expenses allows you to take a portion of the costs with the home office deduction. So you're gonna have this imaginary line on the floor, you're gonna measure your square feet, and you're gonna say, okay, it's this much square feet, and compare it to your whole house square footage. So compared to your whole house square footage, maybe let's say your office is 12% of your home. So if you have to replace the roof, 12%. If you don't own your home, but you pay rent, 12% of your rent, 12% of your mortgage, 12% of plumbing repairs are all gonna be deducted in addition to those direct expenses we just talked about. The third type of actual expense you can have are unrelated. So let's say you don't have people come to your house, everyone you see is on Zoom or you're doing videos, and there's nothing, it's just everything's happening in your little office space. Then your landscaping outside, your pool out back, those are called unrelated expenses. They don't relate to the maintenance of your house. They don't keep your home office warm and safe and dry, and nobody's gonna see them except you. They're for your own benefit. They're unrelated and they won't get deducted. So now that you know what you need to know, you know whether you qualify, and you know a little bit about how to calculate it, go to simpleprofit.com/home office. There you can get my free spreadsheet, either the Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet if you prefer, to help you track your home office expenses. You're gonna use this sheet to keep track of your expenses, and then you're gonna have it available when you sit down at tax time with your tax professional so they can do their part of the job, making sure the calculation is accurate. Also join me at simpleprofit.com and subscribe to this video channel so that you don't miss other upcoming videos where I make the complicated tax things simple and understandable for every business owner.